Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of the week where I do my round 17 predictions this time, and we have got another marvellous set of games. We've got an Anzac Day rematch. We have got a battle for the top 8, multiple top 8 battles. Port Adelaide, the Dogs, Geelong, Hawthorn, GWS, Carlton. Top 8 galore going on here, and some very boring matches towards the later end of the round. Starting off on Friday night, and I am doing these super early because I'm going away. So for things like players that are out and stuff like that, I know none of that. So I'm going purely off vibes of the team. Collingwood take on Essendon, at the G. I am going to go with a Collingwood victory. They need to bounce back after last week's loss to Gold Coast. Essendon need to bounce back against the loss against Geelong, but something about Collingwood at home against Essendon or Carlton or any of those sort of big Victorian teams, they seem to get the job done. And I think with Collingwood, they will have more incentive to win. They are the better team despite the outs they still have. And I reckon that it'll be a really close game still, but I'm going to back the Pies in. And I assume the Pies are the favourite. They are the favourite pretty, not comfortably, but just favourites. And I think they'll get the job done there. North Melbourne take on Gold Coast at Marvel Stadium. Gold Coast, this is your opportunity to get a victory away from home. Okay? You can never win away from home. In fact, have Gold Coast won away from home at all this season? Let me do a little bit of research before I get back to you here. We all know Gold Coast win at home. Do they win away from home at all? Starting off, they lost to the Dogs away from home. They lost to Sydney away from home. Lost to the Lions away from home. Lost to Carlton away from home. Lost to the Saints away from home. Freo away from home. They lose away from home every single time. Can this be their first victory away from home this season? I think it will be. I'm going to go with the Gold Coast victory. North have been good, but Gold Coast, I feel like Dimmer's going to really highlight this game to his players and say, listen lads, if we win this, we can make 8. Because if they do lose this, you'll think they start to slip away from that finals battle. But we're going to go with the Gold Coast Suns victory there, relatively comfortably. Port Adelaide take on the Dogs at Adelaide Oval. Two very interesting teams. Port Adelaide not in the finest of forms. The Dogs in pretty fine form, I must say. I am tempted to go with the Dogs with this one away from home. The favourites, I would assume, are Port Adelaide, and they are not favourites. The Doggies are favourites. I think Port have enough defensive talent to stop the Doggies' forward line talent. I'm going to go with the Port Adelaide victory, an upset victory, not just because it's at home, but I feel like they match up well against the Dogs. So I'm going to go with Port, but I'm not so sure about that one. Geelong take on Hawthorn at GMHBA. The Hawthorn Football Club, can their streak come to an end? They've had some easy runs. I think Geelong just win this match. And I think Hawthorn will fight valiantly, but I think Geelong win this by less than a goal. It'll be an outstanding performance from Hawthorn, a valiant performance at that. However, I do think the quality, and they're still a bit young, and the lack of quality maybe, the form's great, but I think Hawthorn have a super hard run coming up, and I don't think they're making the 8. And I think Geelong get a victory at GMHBA, and they will jump into the top 4 after that. The Giants take on Carlton at the GWS home stadium, NG Stadium. Fuck. This is one of the ones where whenever I've predicted games or every single game and come up with a final ladder, I always paused on this one. Oh, wow. Talk about contrasting forms. The Giants are in woeful form. The Blues are in amazing form. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to look at the injury list really quick. Cherry's got a hamstring test. That's an interesting one there. And the Giants' injury list is looking okay. you know what? I think Carlton are going to score a fuck ton of goals here. Kerno, Mackay, no Sam Taylor. Big bunting, yeah. It's good night. But I still think the Giants can score a lot of points. This is the Giants' season on the line here. They lose this game, they are well out of touch at the 8. They win this game, they might still not make the 8, depending on other results, but they'll definitely get closer. It's really hard. Who do I think will win? I think Carlton will win. They're just in too good of a form. The Giants have let me down all season. I think they're going to continue to let me down, and I'm going to back the Blues in. Fremantle take on Richmond at Optus Stadium. No greater time to play Richmond. No worse time to play Fremantle. Add those two things together, you get an upset. I'm just joking. I think Fremantle win this game very comfortably. Sometimes I look at this like, but when we beat Adelaide away from home, no one thought that would happen. When we beat Sydney at the G, no one thought that would happen. Will I look back on this game and think, everyone thought, in fact, if you look at the odds here, $1.08 to Freo, $8 to Richmond. I mean, talk about, you can't get much worse than that. Everyone thinks Fremantle will win, but Richmond won. It is a very small part of my brain thinks that, but I am still going to go with Fremantle because they're just in fine form. And like I said, we are not in fine form. Melbourne take on the West Coast Eagles at the MCG. This is a game that if it was played earlier on the season, I would honestly back the West Coast Eagles. But the fact of the matter is, despite how bad the form of Melbourne is right now, the Eagles are arguably worse in their form right now. Yes, Melbourne barely scraped a win against North, but West Coast, some of the games West Coast have been playing recently have been absolutely atrocious and just completely not good enough, even though they have been impressive. They got dominated at home by 61 points to Hawks. Valiant against Essendon, but down by 30. They lose to North at home, which is not good enough. Lost at home to St Kilda as well. Down by 100 points to Adelaide. So they have struggled. Now, the reverse fixture, they obviously beat Melbourne, but with it being at the G and with Melbourne finding a bit more form with that near victory against the Lions last week, I think they'll get the job done. We're going to go with a comfortable Melbourne victory here. St Kilda take on Sydney. This is going to be a super interesting matchup, and I do think St Kilda have the potential to cause an upset here, but I am going to go with Sydney on two bases. Number one, they're going to bounce back from the loss. They're going to not want, because if they lose 2 in a row, all of a sudden, that top spot comes into jeopardy. That's one of the ones. And the second is, St Kilda have some really good talented players, but none of those players exist in the midfield. Their midfield is atrocious. The Sydney midfield are going to overrun and dominate the St Kilda midfield. Let's go with the Sydney victory pretty comfortably here as well. And the final game would have been interesting if it was at a different point of the season, but the reality is Brisbane taking on Adelaide at the Gabba is a Brisbane victory. Yes, I do think Adelaide do have that ability to be competitive, but it rarely comes 2 weeks in a row. Competitive last week, actually Adelaide were brilliant last week. Week after, which is this week, I'm just going to assume they're going to fall off a little bit, and they're going to go with a Brisbane Lion victory. So this week, I have gone for no real upsets. I've gone for Collingwood to win, Gold Coast to win, I've gone for Port Adelaide as an upset win, Geelong to win, Carlton to win, Freo, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. I don't see many upsets. But we all know there's going to be 2 or 3 games that are going to be upsets. Should I change one last second? No, I'm going to be smart. I reckon I'll get 7 right. What are your tips? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.